1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get pumped, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in a Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters don't move. Whatever click you choose, you better
Hey, what's going on, everybody? You already know what it is, man. It's your boy 16 to life. I got a good friend of mine by the name of DeMark. So DeMark, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Let's see, man. I'm fresh out, just got out about 3 weeks ago off a life sentence. Down 24 years and 8 months. I'm from Watts, California. And I'm on this process of trying to restore my life back.
Hey, man. Hey, I definitely congratulate you, man. And every time, especially somebody that I did some time with, man, every time they come home, I'm definitely just happy for them, man, because I know what it's like. And so you say you did 24 years and 8 months. So let's just say 25, man, because that's that's 25. Yeah. That's a long time, man. And so you say you've been out about 3 weeks, huh?
3 weeks, yeah, 3 weeks.
Man, so what's going through your mind, just being out after doing all that time? How are you processing things?
Slow. Everything has to be purpose for me. Getting back acclimated with the family, all the new kids, parents, seeing the change in this environment, watch it look way different than it did prior to me going to prison. So just, taking all that in.
So what are some of the things the noticeable changes that you see, being fresh out?
Man, congestion, man, everywhere you go. Cars everywhere, people everywhere, all the streets. You can tell 4 or 5 people live in one home. It's cars everywhere. Just it's just congested out here.
And okay, so that's one thing that we had in prison. We gave each other their own personal space to a certain degree. You didn't walk right up on somebody else, and it's definitely not like that on the street. People are not necessarily mindful or cognizant of what they're doing. So is that different and strange for you to have people all at your back and right, so close to you?
When I came home, and I knew that I'd run into that, right? Because being in that visiting room, you're dealing with people coming from society all the time, and they don't usually say excuse me because I'm assuming in their mind they don't think it's not intentional what they're doing, so they don't feel no need to say excuse me. So I came out here, thinking I'd run into something like that. So yeah.
And so what is it like, man? Being home after doing all that time, when you wake up, or is it odd to wake up and be free?
Hey man, I'm still kind of taking that in. I'm still getting up at 4:30 in the morning. I know. Still trying to get my day started. I got a couple of partners I reach out to, and they like, look, man, we don't get up right here till like 7 or 8. You too early. So just making that adjustment right there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so you say you grew up in Watts, California. So what was that like, man?
Let's see, man. At that time, man, it was life. Everything, it was normal. I go out here on the streets. Your childhood friends become your homeboys. Boys become your co-defendants, and so forth. But
Right. And
you know, I didn't
so
see nothing wrong with it.
did you eventually growing up, did you find yourself getting in trouble young, or what was your situation like?
Yeah, yeah, man. I come into the system at a young age. Uh, start from like 12. From LP to Central, Chillmore, the camps, Gonzalez, Carl Holton, Mariloma, CYA, Fred C. Nellis, always closed. Then to the penitentiary.
Right. And so for those who may not be familiar with the names you just listed, those are basically juvenile facilities and California youth authorities.
Right.
And for those who may also not be familiar, because because I have viewers a little bit of everywhere, explain basically what's the California Youth Authority? What is that?
Okay, so it was described to be a school for uh kids with behavior issues, right? Um, that's what it was. That's what it was labeled. But the environment itself was the opposite. It
Mhm.
was a training school really for people that's ready to come to prison.
So would you say that it's basically like a youth prison for people up to the age of 25?
Up to the age of 25. That's correct.
Now I hear different things about California Youth Authority and this and that. What was your experience like in terms of were there men who were sexually preyed upon?
Oh yeah, you had all that going on, man. You had the poor people that was into that type of stuff. Um, it was like a doggy dog world for young people. Either you would make it or you didn't. It was between. And I went to Hawaii in the '90s, early '90s. So the environment was a little different. I think they got rid of those worlds now. I don't think they exist anymore.
It's a little hard to hear you. I don't know. Is it possible maybe you can come a little closer to the mic, or
Yeah, yeah. Can you hear me now?
right, a little bit better? And so what was you
Okay.
saying? So when I asked you about did they have a lot of men being sexually preyed upon in the California Youth Authority?
Yeah, they had it. You know, they had it. I saw I knew of some incidents happening when I was at Fred C. Nellis. Uh, but it wasn't as prevalent as a lot of people portrayed it to be. At least not down south.
Right. And so this question that I always get when I do stories on things like that happening, why people want to know why isn't things like that stopped? Why don't people stop? Why are things like that permitted or allowed to happen at certain times? In your
Yeah.
opinion, in your experience?
So in my opinion, right? Well, I don't think it was allowed, right? Those are choices dudes was making. Uh, you're in an environment of opportunists, right? And taking advantage of things. That's what was done. So it wasn't necessarily allowed, but it was a behavior that was being done in that environment.
Now, in that environment, was there any structure in terms of the blacks? And see, because I always try to explain to a lot of my viewers, a lot of I believe just the majority of my viewers have never been to prison, but you do have some that have been. But in your opinion, was there any structure? And if not, because we all know that the blacks are not under one umbrella, and so
Right.
how does that hurt? Certain things happening or certain things not happening, just not having no structure.
Yeah, right. So the structure like that you see, well, what structure you do find in prison is different from what it was in YA. You still had people from wherever they were from. They had their alliance. As far as that, it was like wherever you was from, that was your structure. Or whoever was overseeing that community, those were the people that kind of maintained structure in
So
YA.
basically, it could change from 6 months to within 6 months. Basically, whoever was the biggest and baddest running the particular organization that you associated with, if he felt one way about a particular subject, this or that was or wasn't it happening. Then maybe when he left, went home, went to the pen, another dude assumed his position. Then it was however he felt, right?
Yeah, pretty much everybody had. Yeah, if you had one dude that was number one, you already knew who was number two. So if he did leave, it was already somebody waiting on that position.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but see, my question is, like some of these other organizations in the California prisons, like the Southerners, the Northerners, they have
Hmm.
a certain type of structure, and that structure is going to exist regardless of who's in control. So, my question was it like that with the brothers, or would things change depending on who was in the lead role?
So look, the structure was the same, but it wasn't on that scale. It was still within your community. So whatever the blueprint was, if somebody left, the next person who had that position, they followed that same script.
Right. Now, in the California Youth Authorities, are the Hispanics, are they structured in there as in the same manner that they're structured in prison, or is it not as structured? Or
Uh, thinking back, man, we was all kids, right? And
Mhm.
of course, the structure was going to be different because you're younger, your mind is younger, so definitely not the same as it is in prison. Because back then you would see Southerners fighting other Southerners, or Northerners fighting other Northerners. Uh, what they don't do or not allowed to do in adult facilities.
Right. And so, um, growing up as a juvenile, how many times did you experience, going back and forth to, these juvenile facilities and stuff?
Let's see, man. Let me see. So 89, 90. Like every year, man, as I got out within about 8 months, I was back in some facility,
Right.
you know.
So that
Yeah.
was pretty much where you grew up at, or at least spent a
Yeah,
large
yeah.
portion of your juvenile life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and for people who don't, I guess, partake in this type of lifestyle, they always ask, well, why wasn't going to those places a deterrent? What's your response on that?
Yeah. So looking back, going to juvenile hall, you might get up in there and run into some people you was raised with, some people that slept at your house. So
Mhm.
uh you don't look at it. Well, I didn't necessarily look at it like the turning point that it should have been. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
I was still kind of like lost, dealing with my own issues or not dealing with my issues and just uh falling into the system. So that,
right.
that's kind of what that was like for me.
Right. And then of course, we got to realize, like you said earlier too, back then you only what, 13, 14. So your
Yeah,
your thinking is different. And then you alluded to when you run across a couple of people that you grew up with, now
right,
you really not in jail in your mind. You kicking it with the homies. You guys are just kicking it in a different
right.
environment.
That's true.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely I definitely understand. I was just trying to, make that clear for those who have not, partaken in this type of lifestyle. So
right.
at what point in time did you find yourself uh locked up, I guess, in the county jail, facing these charges that got you sent to prison?
Uh, you mean what year?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was 1998. It was June '98.
So
Yeah,
by how old were you?
yeah. I was 23, maybe 23, 24 at that time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then so you deal with the process. You go, you go. I'm assuming you didn't take a. I'm assuming you didn't take a deal for life. So you was convicted, and how much time was you end up sentenced to?
I was initially sentenced to 30 years of life for two
Uh-huh.
counts of assault with deadly weapon.
Okay. And so, man, I was pretty much around the same age
Hmm.
when I was sentenced to 16 plus life. So what was your
Right.
thought process when you was handed, when you was handed all that time?
Yeah, man, my thought process was like, I couldn't understand how I got that much time uh, for two counts of assault with deadly weapon. Of course, you're at that stage, man. everything's about denial, or everything's about I'm not, I don't receive that, you know. So that's kind of where I was at.
Right. So you said 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon. So in your
Right,
situation, no one even lost their life.
right.
And that's just sometimes what I talk about too, how the laws just change in
Hmm.
that short of, amount of time. Because I got arrested and went to trial in 1994, and so just the leap in time. I had 3 attempted murders, and then I had a separate murder, and I ended up getting 16 years plus life for all of that
Mm,
stuff. And so I tell
right,
a lot of individuals, I honestly was happy with the time that I received. And so
right.
maybe just 6 years later, when they came out with the gun laws and all this other type of stuff,
Hmm.
dang, so you end up getting 30 to life.
Right. Yeah.
Wow,
30 to
and
life.
that's what I
Yeah.
try to point out to these young dudes, man, with the new changes in law
Hmm.
nowadays. You'll get a lot of time, man, for a little bit of nothing. And so that's something that they definitely have to be mindful of. And like you say, though, it's so hard to do that when we're young. We're not
Right,
thinking, maturely, I guess.
right.
So you end up going to prison. What was the first prison that they sent you to?
After reception, I first place was High Desert.
Uh, and
Yeah.
so I don't want to necessarily skip
Hmm.
right over reception. Was there anything? Well, you know what? I'll let you answer it. So, was it at reception or maybe at High Desert? What was the first, moment that kind of made you say, like, okay, dang, man, I'm really in prison now, or had your experiences going to California Youth Authority got you used to all the violence and stuff? Is there, I guess I'm trying to ask, what moment really made you realize, like, wow, man, I'm up here with the big boys.
Right. Let's see. I think when we drove to the gate at St. Quentin, that's the reception I was at, and it said "Welcome to St. Quentin." I think that's when it got real for me, right? And I kind of like tapped into everything I knew from coming up in the system. Right? What to look for. How to survive, or what to accept, what not to accept. My mind kind of went right there.
Uh-huh.
You know. So, yeah.
And then, so I'm, like I say, I tell people I'm from a smaller town, but you
Right.
being from Watts, a more larger populated area, when you did get to San Quentin, you got the reception. I'm assuming you seen some people that you knew, or at least people who was from your area.
Not initially, right? Because
Uh-huh.
I was in I was in Badger section. It's secluded, you know,
Right.
like on the fifth tier somewhere. So, but eventually somebody came by and s- reached out to me. A brother named Leprechaun, from out this way, out of nearby Watts. He really from South Central. He came by, tapped in with me, and you know, kind of like connected me to some other people. That's kind of how I got acclimated with the fellas that was up there.
Right, because I think I was locked up maybe about 3 or 4 years before I actually ran across somebody who was from my area. And
Uh,
so, I think sometimes it's a little bit more comforting when we do run across people who are from our area, even if we don't know them. If we may know their parents, they may know our parents, brothers, or whatever, and stuff like that. So when you hit High Desert, what was going on up there? I've always heard that High Desert is an extremely racist prison, and that the guards supply the white inmates with weapons and knives. Is that true?
uh, well, man, prison has its culture, right?
Right.
And sometimes the staff are involved in that foolishness. But hey, man, it's a lot going on up there, a lot, and that's prison culture. But everybody played their part in it.
And so
Yeah.
the High Desert, that's a level 4.
Level 4, I was on a C facility, the 180 side first before I made it to B yard. Yeah.
So what was like the racial tension and stuff going on up there? Did you ever were you ever involved in any riots up there or things like that?
at 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 high desert on C facility is basically zero tolerance for everybody. I think that's what kind of kept that place uh safe. I'm gonna use that word, right? Zero
Uh-huh.
tolerance. So certain things people just did not do, would not do, because there was no understanding for that at that time. But the prison stayed on lockdown so much, it kind of prevented a lot of stuff from happening. You
Uh-huh.
know.
And so I know at times I've ran across individuals who actually prefer to be on a level 4 because of just of what you said. Certain things is just not going to happen. It's much more respect, you know. And so you're not going to have maybe some of the issues you might have on a level 2 or even a level 3. I think that the fear of violence keeps people in line, you know. Um, so what was like what was basically going on up there that kind of basically kept everybody in line? Was it that fear of sometimes losing
Yeah,
losing
yeah,
person?
yeah, definitely. I don't think it was about respect, man. That whole environment is about fear and intimidation, and that's enough for some people to stay in their place, right? You see what happened on the yard for people who don't respect the rules of prison culture,
Right,
and that's something that happened every time we came off lockdown. Uh, all groups, all factions displayed that behavior to keep their community in line. That's a
right,
better choice of words right there.
right. And so once you left High Desert, what prison did they send you to next?
I went to Pleasant Valley, which
Uh
was a level 3, and that place was like day and night. It was a little different. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there too, but at least you had some night yard. You know what I mean?
right.
Yeah.
And so you had told me a time about you was at I forget what particular prison you had told me about, but when a white crip hit the yard, and you know, for those who don't know, you know, white crips, white bloods, Hispanic crips, Hispanic bloods, especially back in
Hmm.
that time, that was always a problematic issue because they were viewed as race traders by whatever race they happen to be. So
Yeah.
what can you give us a story about what happened when the white crip hit the yard that you was on?
Yeah, man. Well, as you know, man, this racial thing has always been a big issue. But it was a young brother from out of Compton. I won't say his name, but he happened to be white, and skinheads was didn't like that situation, and it ended up turning into a big melee, big riot. Uh, he was sliced in the neck, uh, going to help somebody. You know, so they kind of took that personal that he was helping another African in a situation with some whites. And that I believe that situation lasted. That little war lasted probably about three years. I actually, after even I left and went to the shoe behind that foolishness, that place still was having issues behind that. So yeah, it got ugly over that.
And you know, I got an intro on one of my songs, and I mentioned in the song year-long racial fights. And so that's basically what you're talking about, that even though the incident is over, that it continues. So each time you people are let out to the yard,
Right,
um it's right back. The fighting stuff is right back happening and stuff.
right,
And so you
right.
said you end up going to the shoe.
Yeah, I end up end up going to the shoe, end up jacking my points back up, and then actually end up going back to high desert for 5 more years. So I ended up going back up after I got done my little shoe turn, landed back up there. Yeah.
So in that initial riot over the white crip, were a lot of people hurt, or what do you remember about that?
Uh, well, the initial incident happened before the yard opened up. It was after that is when it got It got violent after that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you had mentioned that he had went to help another Crip, and so he didn't. So then he was assaulted and slashed on the neck at a later time.
Yeah, boy, the dude he was going to help wasn't even a Crip. He was a Muslim. He was a Muslim
Okay,
dude. And I guess he had a relationship with him, and he went to go aid him. Somebody came and did something to him, hit him in the neck in the process. So it was like an unfortunate situation. Uh, it didn't have nothing to do with skinheads or Crips. Uh, it was just a Muslim and some white dudes getting into it, and he just happened to jump in, get involved. And they said, that was an opportunity for them to express what they really felt about him because they was there on the yard with him already.
right. Okay, and so so the reason he went and got involved more than likely is because he housed and he was in the cell with Africans or blacks, and so he felt it was his obligation to help.
Yeah, yeah, he was housed with somebody that was black. I don't know if he felt that was his obligation, but he went over there, so probably so. He probably did feel like that. You
Uh-huh.
know.
And so was that the first? Was that the first? Later on, when the riot jumped off, was that the first riot that you had been caught up in since you had got to prison?
That no, that would be the third one. I had a situation at Pleasant Valley. We got into it with another faction, a group on the yard. Let's see. Yeah, Pleasant Valley got a lot of stuff going on, right? It's kind of open. A lot of people be on the yard. On level 4, they kind of cap the numbers.
Hmm.
You know, level 3 at that time. You know, all the buildings was I think all the buildings was coming out. So it's a lot of men on the yard, and a lot of them from different places were all mixed on one yard before they started separating. Northerners and Bulldogs, or whatever factions they had on the yard. So
Hmm.
yeah.
And so when you talk about the first incident that you got into, was it an incident? Was it a spur of the moment, or was it something that was brewing?
No, 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 no. It was a spare of the moment thing, man. It was something that should have never happened, but it happened. Um, yeah, it wasn't planned. It was just two people uh didn't see eye to eye on something, man. And then everybody from this side and that side went to aid who they had love for.
Right.
That's all.
And so have you ever got into a riot when um basically people knew that it was about to happen? It was a situation brewing.
You know what? I walked out a building one time with and you can see that it was something wasn't right. Everybody's kind of gravitating to where they was going, and me, I just had like, what the deal was, and it was like, oh, something happened in the kitchen at breakfast, and it may come out here. I'm like, oh, okay. I walked from one building to the next building, and in a matter of seconds, it just, it went up. So I probably had like a minute and a half notice before it turned into what it turned into.
And so, yeah, the question I was trying to get to is, so what is I mean, at some point in time, sometimes, like you said, if this was at a level 3, sometimes the yard is 400 or 500 people, maybe even more than that. So what's
Right.
the eeriness of you can tell the change in the atmosphere. What's that like?
It's quiet. You know what I'm saying? It's quiet, and you got everybody completely separated to wherever their area is, right? And that's how you know something is in the air, right? But 9 out of 10, man, if something is happening in the building and then you come outside, everybody communicate immediately, right?
Mhm.
Just for your own personal security and safety. So it's not those type of situations. Something happened in the morning, you're in the own building, you may not know. You might not even make it out there. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how that works.
Right. And then, so like you said, that's how basically that was that's a sign that lets people know that it's something going on in prison when it's quiet. when people ain't playing handball and
Right.
exercising and playing basketball or soccer or whatever, when it's quiet, that's an eerie feeling, and you get a pit in you some people may get that feeling in their stomach, because with all those people out there on the yard, it's a extreme potential that some people may get hurt or even lose their life.
Well, yeah, you got people that normally hang out together, right? You got other races that kind of communicate, but you don't see nobody of a different race hanging together. And, everybody got boots on. You know what I'm saying? You ain't no radios out there. Something's not is not normal. The program is not normal. So
Right.
something is in the air.
And so when the situation ended up turning into what it turned into, were you involved, or
Yeah,
were you
yeah,
caught up and sent to the
yeah,
hole, or
yeah. Well, with so many people, man, whoever had marks on them, they went to the hole. That's how that worked.
right? Because some people get away,
Yeah.
like you say, it's so many people involved, they can't get everybody.
No, they didn't get everybody, but you had dudes went to the hole uh from friendly fire. You know what I'm saying? Just
Right.
it's out of control. You're not gonna get everybody. They never do. Or sometimes they don't want everybody. They want some people to go back in their feelings so they can, when they open the yard up, they can continue that process. You know?
And I was going to ask you about that. I've ran across people who've had the mentality that if something is happening on the yard, they're gonna get involved because they don't want to get caught up in that second wave. When something happens in prison at
Hmm.
spur of the moment, it may
Hmm.
not be as deadly as the next wave when it's planned, especially if it's
Yeah.
between different races. Now, this race know that they're supposed to get into it whenever the doors is open with the next race. So of course everybody is planning and stuff for war, and that's
Yeah.
now back then at that time, after you guys was initially the guards came and calmed the situation down for the time being. How
Mm.
often was the yard being opened and up back again? So because like you
Mm.
said, sometimes the powers that be, they want people to go back so it can happen again.
Yeah. So that situation at Pleasant Valley, after that riot happened right there, they shut that yard down. They shipped us all out to Folsom. We never got yard again together.
Okay.
Yeah. That was like '04 or something like that. '04. We all, yeah, they dispersed everybody in different prisons. Some went to different yards. And yeah, that's how that went.
And so where did you end up? You said you ended up going to Old Folsom.
Yeah, I went to Old Folsom.
Now, Old Folsom is notorious too for having a lot of riots and stuff like that. When you went there at the time, so what's going on there?
Oh man, so it's you got like four different generations there together trying to coexist. It's a
Uh-huh.
lot of people. The building I was in, it's like 1,100 people in one building.
Eleven
So
hundred people in one building.
in one building, right? So you can imagine how many different personalities have to interact with each other. And when you have that, the potential for conflict is always there. You know,
Right. So when like you said, it's 1,100 people in one building.
uh,
How can a person navigate through that type of stuff without um getting in conflict and creating confusion and stuff like that?
man, you got to follow that script. Whatever that script is, that's either given to you or that you already know. You try to be. I'm gonna use the word decent, right? I like that better than respect. You try to be decent to all men, uh, of all backgrounds, and then you be where you're supposed to be, and you stay away from where you're not supposed to be. You hang tight with your community, whatever that means to you, and that allow you to function like you're supposed to for the most part.
Right. Now, with all that being said, by me and you both doing time, we both
Right.
know that even though the rules are explained, people know what's expected to them. You always gonna run across people who, for whatever reason, just don't get it. Sometimes they might not be all there in the head. Sometimes they might
Yeah,
view
yeah.
life a little differently. Sometimes they
Right.
may think they're a bully. So how is that? What's it just? basically what's it like, like I said, having all this stuff going on? So what do you do with them type of people? You stay away from them?
Nah, man, look here. Mental health in the prison system is, in my opinion, probably 50% of the problem, if not a little more, right? Because a lot of dudes have mental issues, don't know it, don't accept it. What they need is probably not available, and they can be a risk to everybody because you don't know. Everybody look normal, right? But
Right,
you got a guy that just walk out and just, assault another dude of another background because he had a mental issue, a lapse or whatever. But that person don't know that. His people don't know that. So
right,
now you're in a situation in the kitchen, and then the police, they don't have no. They gotta stop what they gotta stop. So ain't no block gun right now. They're using a mini right there. So what you supposed to do with that,
yeah,
right? Is it's the gun, or it's the person who attacking you, or who you attacking, or your folks attacking you because you did not assist the person who needed assistance. So you kind of up against it, and it all can stem from just one person who not taking their medication. You understand
right.
that? Yeah.
And then also too, I think at the end of the day, prison is a prison is a cruel place. And sometimes even if a person does have a mental condition, you got people who just don't care. Bottom line,
Right. Right.
people that
That's
they don't
true.
care. So
That's true.
you're not, people aren't in prison. They're not hospital workers. You don't have people, with caring attitudes. And so
Yeah.
basically, man, they want you to control your people or control that dude. And regardless of his mental mind state, if he get out of
Mhm.
line, he's gonna get treated like everybody else.
That's very true. There is no there's not, well, if you're you know actively involved in prison culture, there is no compassion for that. That
Right.
doesn't really exist right there. It is what it is. If you can walk, get up in the morning, you come out to this yard, and whatever your position is, you respect that. What it is.
Yeah. And so during your first few years in prison, man, what was your program like? What was you doing up in there? And to basically try to cope with the sentence you had the sentence you had been given.
See, my starting off, look, man, I was appealing my case, and then, not accepting that I received that much time, uh, hanging out with the fellas, all over the place. That's really what it was, right? Because you
Uh-huh.
still trying to exist, stay alive, and try to keep something going on with your family. You know, it was and some of that stuff, man. I believe I like blacked out, right? Just like, man, I'm stuck. How
Right.
you supposed to process that at that age when you're around people that got 100 years to do, 200 points. Uh, I didn't even know what a level 3 was. I never heard of one. And
Mhm.
nobody talked about leaving off that mountain. So you can imagine. Look, it wasn't a feeling of hopelessness because it wasn't even about hope. You know what I'm saying? It just was what it was, starting off for me.
And I was going, it's crazy that you said that because I was going to ask you. My next question was going to be, because around the time you came to prison, people who had life with parole still were not being paroled. So what was what did you get from the other people, the dudes you was hanging with on your certain situation? Did you have hope about going home, or did you
Nah,
think
nah,
you'd be in prison forever?
that didn't even exist, man. Everything was about the appellate court, United States Supreme Court, California Supreme Court.
Right. So
Like,
either
as
get
far
out
as
through the courts or you stuck.
that's it, that was your options. You didn't see nobody going home, at least
And
not for
so
no level 4.
and so what did that do? What did that do to your psyche and your mentality? When you have all these men, some of the most violent men from different parts of California, housed and locked up in one place, and nobody has the incentive to go home, and this. What does that do to your psyche, your survival instincts? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Let's see. For me, right? I think what it did for me is it it just caused me to accept that that's where I was at. because you can't fight. It's like fighting a ghost. You know what I'm saying? And you ain't gonna win because you don't know where they at. So I just said, this is where I'm at. This is what I got to do. And I think that gave me living in that space allowed me to do that time right the best way I knew how to do it. Because if I thought about it, something that was outside of my control, that wasn't gonna be good for me, for my mental, for my what was going on in my head. So I
Right.
tried to avoid that by kind of like saying I'm here for right now and not really worrying about tomorrow. You know, we deal with today.
Right. And everybody deals with getting life differently, you know. I did somewhat to what you talked about. I didn't think about it, you know, because that's the way, you know, the way I dealt with it was kind of not thinking about it, you know, not thinking about
Right.
having all that time and stuff like that. And you know, I've seen other people who were extremely miserable and angry. You know, I've had cellies
It's true.
who was angry, and they was, you know, and it seemed like they, anytime they had a chance to become combative with anyone who was in an authoritative position, they would do that, but not necessarily because the person who was in their position was out of line. They was angry at
Hmm.
having all that time and angry at anybody who they felt represented the system that got them the time. So what's it
It's
like,
true.
man, when you do have all that time and they got you confined in a small space? I just want you to speak on how important it is to having a cellie that you are compatible with, or at least can get along.
Yeah, that's big in that environment because you stuck in the cell sometimes. 6 months to a year, depending on if what the program is, if you're locked down or not, right? And let me see something here. So that's kind of what that is. I'm gonna have to go in here and plug this thing into this charger because it's running low.
Okay.
Um, but as far as that is concerned, your best bet is to try to find, you know, hold up, it might be a plug right here. Find you a cellmate that yeah, I got one right here that you can coexist with. Kind of know how to mind his business and stay clear away. One who not always angry or mad at the police, because that ain't gonna do but bring problems to your cell, which can lead to some violence with the staff.
Right.
Which you already know happens all the time. It may not be you. It could be your your bunkie, and now you caught up because you trying to make sure he okay.
Right. And then in the event, which of course on the level threes and really level fours, especially the level fours, most level threes, when your celly gets into it with the with the COs up in there, even if he's 100% wrong and it gets physical and you don't help, now you're perceived as a coward and this and that. So you really have no option but to help, you know.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate rule right there that that has a lot of people doing a life sentence on top of another life sentence right now. Yeah,
And I think, you know, it's crazy because sometimes, you know, when we're locked up in prison, I think just the culture, the culture makes people not want to have a voice in situations where they should have a voice. Like if me and you are cellies and
yeah,
I'm in the cell doing something like you said that's 100% wrong, that's going to cause the guards to come over there, you
yeah.
know, and go come in the cell, search the cell, take stuff or whatever. Sometimes people may feel like they don't want to tell their celly, hey man, stop doing that, because now that opens up the door for me to say, well, so what you doing, homie? You riding with the police? You on the police's side? So
Right.
sometimes situations like that somewhat cause people unknowingly to endorse people's bullshit. And instead of speaking up and saying, hey man, what you doing is wrong, you know.
Well, in some cases, man, but then you got some people, man, they will respect that if you assertive like that. You tell them, look, this is don't do that because you do that, you gonna bring me involved in that. And if it ain't righteous, then you already know what come along with that later on. Like we might go to the hole today, but we're gonna get out, and we gonna when we do get out, then now you got to answer to that. So don't nobody really want that what they got to answer to. So
Right.
sometimes you got to speak up and you got to tell a person, remind them of the reality of that behavior. In a lot of cases, man, it deters a person from doing that, in my experience.
Right.
Them crackers let me out the gate, now the pressure's on. We bout to get this shit straight like a pressing cone. The wrong cat to get aggressive on. I bring the bitch up out of niggas while you think they got them dresses on. My reach long and that's the best type. To have some dirty white boys come and smoke you like a meth pipe. And leave your chest bright red like a fire truck. Kicking your mom's door at night, nigga, and tie her up. I'm wild as fuck and I'm respected by the new youth. I put this pistol in their ear like a Bluetooth. I blow their brains on they new coupe. And have red everywhere just like a function full of soup whoops. Tell your troops I deal with beef like a butcher. My 4-5 pump more guys than Ashton Kutcher. Line pusher, quick to bury your clown. Nigga, I stayed in the park like the merry-go-round. Get it?
The game greasy, bitch, the game need me. Oh, you niggas don't know my name. The game greasy, bitch, the game need me. I'm out here doing my thing. The game greasy, bitch, the game need me. I swerve in my own lane. The game greasy, bitch, the game need me.